Welcome back to Learn It from the Layman. I am Carl Christensen. I am joined by Cameron, Matt, and Dr. Jonny. Seems like it's been a little
I'm Layman Jonny today.
Layman Jonny, that's correct. Well, I'm Layman Carl, and I'll be presenting, and Dr. Jonny will be curating the content of this podcast. Fact checking, if you will.
That's a departure from our standard practice.
That's true. We can vote him out if we want. Like, we've got a Cameron, Matt, and I.
We've never really been much about fact checking or accuracy, or
That's how science
wasn't our
works.
motto generally correct?
I try to check our facts using a popular search engine.
That's right.
You can vote on what you want to believe now. It's fine.
That's right. Yep. Up or down. Yep. Okay. For real, though, we're going to be talking about the basics of the ear, or basics of hearing. And this is pretty important for me right now because I've been having ear problems for like a month, and thus the impetus for talking about hearing. But yeah, we're going to be covering lots of different questions, including echolocation, which is kind of cool. But we're going to start at the beginning, which is the ear. So there's different parts of the ear. There's the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. Kind of somewhat self-explanatory, you would say. Jonny, I've got like names in here that you're going to need to like say for me.
Do you want me to cover a little bit of
cochlea.
A few basics about the ear?
Oh, you want to talk about the basics of the ear? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. So the ear is really important for two things. One, it's very important for hearing, and two, what people don't realize, it's important for motion and balance. So you have the outer ear, and it's called the pinna. And basically what it does is it just, that big old floppy structure, it catches I guess we are recording, so I can point to it.
Yeah. Just post
it catches all the sound waves and funnels them into your external auditory canal, which goes down and it vibrates a structure called the eardrum. Okay, so the eardrum is pretty important. So then you have the eardrum is connected to a bone which connects to two other bones, and it actually amplifies. So as the noise is vibration, so as the eardrum vibrates, those bones actually amplify or make those waves a little bit taller. And the last bone will cause it's almost like a plunger that goes into your internal ear, and it sends this vibration through a fluid that will stimulate something called hair cells. And the hair cells will be stimulated in different areas depending on like the wave form of the sound that you're hearing. And depending on where those are stimulated and that electrical signal that gets sent to your brain, it will be interpreted as a specific sound. So basically you're taking something mechanical, these sound waves, and then you change it into an electrical signal with the hair cells. And then the hair cells will transmit that through a nerve into your brain. So that's kind of how hearing works in very, very basic terms.
Which is what we do here, Jonny. So good job.
Yes. So one thing that's a little interesting, I think, about the ear is the balance aspects. You have these canals that that are kind of like circular shaped, like a racetrack. And when you twist your head, that's what makes you feel like you're moving your head. So they lie in different planes, and so you can feel your head like twisting around. And then there's also some other areas in the ear that can help you feel if you're going like forwards or backs, or forward to back, or side to side. So your ears so if you close your eyes and somebody pushes you, you can feel which way you're going based on how your inner ear works. So the inner ear is very cool. And hearing is very cool, but balance is also very cool, especially if you're on blood thinners, for our older folks out there listening.
Pretty important. Yeah, the balance aspect of it is it's interesting because I think a lot of these things, and we'll talk about aging a couple times in the podcast tonight, but like a lot of people get vertigo, and from what I read, Johnny, that's caused by so there's like crystals, and they essentially get where they're not supposed to be, and so it causes the whole system to kind of get out of whack.
Yeah, so these membrane, so these like canals and these membranes that help you know which way you're moving, that they run off of a couple different mechanisms, but one of them uses like these heavy stone type areas on like the membranes, and as you move forward, the stone will, because of I think it's inertia. I don't know, Matt. You can destroy me if I'm wrong, but it'll want to stay.
No.
It'll want to stay put, and so you'll feel that as like a motion. The problem is that sometimes these can get detached, and then they start stimulating random parts of your inner ear. So your inner ear is sending a message to your brain saying, "Hey, you're moving all over the place," and then your eyes are saying, "No, you're not." And then you also have something called proprioception that's important for balance. That's like if you close your eyes, you can tell like where your body is in space. And so if one of those things is off from the other two, then you feel dizzy. You have like this spinning sensation, because those three systems should all interact together to tell you exactly what's happening with your body. So it's really when these things don't align that it really starts to mess things up. So if you are like testing somebody, for example, if their balance is messed up, you can have somebody close their eyes, because then they lose that entire balance by using your eyeballs, by just seeing like where you are, and then it's a lot easier to test to see if the inner ear is intact. So anyway, kind of an interesting way. That's why you might see people that, especially older people, that close their eyes. They might sway quite a bit. They can even fall over. So if you're older, try this with a partner, just to make sure there's no head injuries today.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like balance related questions that so like kids, right? Everyone knows that kids like to spin, which is like it makes everyone else, like any adult is ill by watching someone spin. Like I watch my kids like spin in a circle and I want to vomit. And but what is it about spinning around that first of all, I guess why can kids do it and adults can't? And second, why does it make you nauseous?
Yeah, so what you're doing is these canals, if you think of it like a loop, like think of it like a hula hoop filled with beads, like they are, okay? So you start spinning, and then pretty soon the hula hoop, like if you spin the hula hoop around, the beads will be moving the same speed as the hula hoop. And then if you stop it quickly, the beads will keep moving around the hula hoop. So what you're doing is your canals in your ear are like that hula hoop, and the beads inside are actually a fluid. So what you do is when you spin around, you're getting the fluid moving in these canals very quickly. And then what you do when you stop is the cells inside the canal are still being stimulated and telling you that you're spinning. So you can test this on your kids. You can have them spin around really, really, really fast,
I will.
and then hold their head still, and you will see their eyes twitch like this.
Mhm.
Um, and that's because their body thinks that they're spinning, and they're trying to spot where they're going to go in space. So, and again, it's this imbalance of my eyes are not doing what my inner ear tells me that I'm doing, and so it creates this problem, and we get dizzy. The reason why adults probably feel sick when we spin, I'm not really sure, or when we watch other people spin, is probably just by association, because we've spun before and we feel sick afterwards, and then when we watch somebody spin, we like are activating that part of our brain, and then we're like, oh, we're like totally sick from watching these kids doing that, is the most likely reason.
Okay. Well, so,
I
but
would agree with Dr. Jonny. You're activating your parasympathetic brain that is causing you nausea.
yeah, that mean that like that part of it, but like the actual spinning part, like I get that everything you said makes sense, but I don't understand how that maps into nausea. Like, okay, so I'm spinning, and now my stomach is upset. Like, I get that I'm dizzy. That makes sense to me. Like, I'm gonna fall over, which is what kids do, right? But what if that, like, where does that map into? And now you must vomit.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, I think it's just because of the relation to that area of the brain is close to this area that is in charge of basically when you ingest like poison or something that's really bad for you, it'll trigger this part of the brain that will make you vomit. And that part is very close to this area that controls your balance. And so when you activate that part, since it's really close, it kind of gets activated too, and then you feel nauseous, and then you can throw up.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I mean, well, not cool. I mean, who
That
hasn't
might be
vomited?
a total lie, but I think it's true.
All right. Well, we'll let some live fact checking go. But I like it's an informed guess, which is better than I would have done. So, once again, I think it's just magic. Uh, so,
Well, the problem is that I'm more of an auditory learner, so I will remember things that I've heard before, but sometimes I don't remember like reading them. So so I like won't remember facts correct occasionally because of that. Somebody told me something that was incorrect. Anyway, happens with you a lot, Paul. Happens with Tim
well,
all the time.
that's what we're known for. You got to be famous for something, so it might as well be misinformation. Uh, okay. So I didn't actually mean for Johnny to have to do all the presentation here, but obviously he's the one that has the medical degree. But I do have like a list of questions, Johnny, that I was going through, and I've answered these myself, but you have the background. So yeah, I'm gonna like go through them, and then if you want to defer, I'm happy to spew the information that I found.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So how come some people can hear higher pitches? Or how come
Higher
kids can
what?
hear higher pitches? Yeah, well, pitches with a P.
P as in Bob.
PG podcast, Johnny. He's kid friendly.
Oh, sorry. Like different animals or just different people?
Different people, especially obviously kids, are able to hear higher pitches, and then as we age, we lose that ability. So why is that? And is there a reason? I think some people biologically are set up to be able to hear higher pitches than other people, even at the same age. Um, any insight into that, Johnny?
Yeah, the main idea of hearing higher pitches has to do with which of those hair cells in your internal ear are being stimulated. So your cells are very sensitive to this vibration, and it can actually damage them if the amplitude is too high. So these higher pitched sounds will typically cause more damage to the hair cells, and so you'll lose that part of your hearing. Now, fortunately, it's not like, I mean, if you can't hear a dog whistle, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to function in society. Like, it's not an important part for you to be able to hear those things. The lower pitches are probably more important. But there are some different like age type tests that you can do, and you can find these online where it'll tell you, like, it'll have you like pause when you stop hearing the sound or start hearing the sound. And it can kind of like tell you what your ear age is. So typically as you age, you will lose those higher pitched sounds. But I'm not sure about like, I mean, are there like super hearers or something like that? Like, anyway, I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so this is what I saw. It said that, so like you said, it's those hairs, that inside is it cochlea, Johnny?
Uh, only if you want to get canceled. It's cochlea.
What is it?
Cochlea.
Okay.
Don't worry, kids. We'll do another episode on the cochlea coming soon.
Oh my gosh. Okay, cochlea. Cochlea. Um, yes, so the tiny hair cells along the membrane inside the cochlea pick up like you said, Johnny, this whole time. So what it said is that some people biologically are naturally born with more hair cells, and therefore they're more sensitive to those higher frequencies.
Yeah, probably like the Beach Boys. They're picking up good vibrations.
Yes. They says that on average, young females can hear slightly higher frequencies than young males. And they attribute that either to smaller cochlea or just hormonal differences inside the body. I don't know. Anyway, that's the information I was able to retrieve. Okay.
That's cool. I love that.
Yeah.
Superhero.
Yes, there are superheroes, and then like you said, as you get older, like you lose these hair cells, and these hair cells are smaller and more fragile, and so they wear out, and and that's why. And then this is actually interesting because then I mapped a little bit into my uh, linguistic knowledge, where it was talking about how if you've been around the elderly, you know that they get hard of hearing, obviously, but then like they complain that people mumble a lot, and that has to do beyond just like their their lower noise, the threshold of hearing, but it's also like different sounds actually generate different frequencies, like your fricatives, which we won't go into depth, but that's essentially your high vibration sounds, like your S, your F, your th, sh. Those have higher frequencies, and higher frequencies fade as you get older, and so you can imagine essentially what happens in speech is the elderly will pick up a lot of the sounds that they're not used to with speech, but then they'll actually miss some of these higher frequency sounds. And so if you say, let's have some fun, and they don't hear the F because it's higher frequency, they'll hear, let's have some un. Anyway, then it just all turns into kind of gobbledygook, mumbling. And so just the reason that even if you feel like you're, saying all the words at the same decibel level, some of them are different frequencies, and therefore they drop out of the hearing range of the elderly.
So, are they only called fricatives in Utah? Is it a worse word in other states?
No, Johnny. No, it's not.
It's like flippatives?
There are, okay. All right. Johnny's trying to derail the podcast. All right, we're going to the next one. Okay. What happens when you pop your ears? You know, when you're going up elevation, down elevation, what is that pop? And is it bad for you?
Yeah, so your middle ear is between bone and your eardrum. So it's an enclosed space. Your eardrum is airtight. So when you're going up and down elevation, I don't know if many of you are um, physicists on here. I know there's a lot of people that dabble in physics on here because they like to listen to Matt. But
That's true.
that when you change elevations, you're actually changing the air pressure. And as the air pressure, so let's say you're going up elevation, then the air pressure outside is going to go down, and the pressure inside your middle ear is going to increase relative to the pressure outside. So now you have a lot more air inside your middle ear, a lot more air molecules, then will create a balanced membrane that is able to wiggle. It'll be pushed out. Like when you take a bag of chips up a mountain and it gets all topped. It'll do the same thing to your ears. So it makes it really difficult to hear when the membrane can't wiggle. So you have a tube that connects your middle ear into a place called your pharynx, which is like kind of like the back of your throat area. And what will happen is this little tube, it's called the eustachian tube. You guys might have heard of it, but maybe you haven't heard of it if you have dysfunction.
Okay, doctor joke.
So what will happen is, since there's too many molecules on the inside of your ear, air will go out of your middle ear through this eustachian tube, and you'll hear that air leaving as little tiny bubbles going through the eustachian tube, and it makes like a little popping sound. That's what you're hearing, as that popping sound. When you're going down elevation, now there's too much air like outside compared to inside. And so you got to get air going through the eustachian tube the other way. That goes and it will create a balanced air pressure between both sides so that the tympanic membrane or the eardrum can wiggle again. So when you're going down elevations, something that can be helpful is plugging in your nose and blowing against a plugged nose, and that will force air into the eustachian tube and into the middle ear. You don't want to be like super forceful with this, like you can hurt yourself. So be careful and mindful that you could hurt yourself. But if you're having a really hard time going down elevations and you need your ears to pop, that's something that can help them pop.
And when you say you could hurt yourself, it's essentially like if you create too much pressure going back up the eustachian tubes, you're going to put even more pressure on the eardrum, right?
Yeah, so like everything that holds air in an enclosed space has a max capacity for when it will explode. So your eardrum has an explosion limit too. So don't put too much air in there or it can pop, and that can create some pretty bad damage. You just want to be careful.
Okay. Now, as the resident, like, accident-prone, Cameron, I'm talking.
Don't know what you're talking about. I never
Yeah,
have.
Cameron has never injured himself, not even recently, not in any way. Have you ever perforated your eardrum?
I have not, but I do know someone that has.
Okay. And how did that happen?
They did it by showering and letting the shower go into their eardrum and burst it.
Huh.
You know the same person, by the way.
Like water hitting directly in the ear.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Your mother did that.
Oh, did she?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just so
I had forgotten. Okay.
yes. Also, it's wonderful that Jonny was telling us about the process of diffusion through the membrane.
Very nice. Okay.
If it was water, it would be osmosis, but it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not water moving.
It's not water moving. It's air.
There we go. You can go back and listen to the basics of biology, which Jonny did years ago, which I think we probably discussed osmosis. So.
Hopefully. That's the whole reason to talk about biology.
Of course it is. It's the most exciting. Literally the only thing I remember from high school biology. So.
I wanted to talk about something about the middle ear as well. So if you get an infection in your middle ear, it can put a lot of pressure because there can be a couple of things. One, when you get a cold or anything that produces makes your nose runny, those membranes that are in your throat and everything like that can produce the same mucus. And if it goes in through the eustachian tube, it can fill up your middle ear. That middle ear fluid is called an effusion. And it's basically like a cesspool for bacteria. So the bacteria, if they get in there, they can divide without anything else really getting in there. You can get some immune response and things like that, but it's not the best area to get an immune response to. So it's pretty easy for, especially for kids, to get middle ear infections. The reason adults don't get them as much is because our eustachian tube is a little bit downwards, so it tends to drain the fluid better than in a kid's ear. But what can happen is if that pressure builds, so if you're sick and everything is and then you get an infection in your middle ear, that infection will cause inflammation, and that will block the eustachian tube from draining. So what will happen is the pressure will build up really heavily inside of the ear, and you can actually rupture your eardrum. You'll know if a kid has done this by there'll actually be pus coming out of their ear. So pretty common thing that I see in pediatrics are middle ear infections or ruptured eardrums. And most of the time, kids won't lose any hearing after having an ear infection, but the accumulation of those ear infections over time, when they're healing, they can create scar tissue. Scar tissue doesn't vibrate as well as the real membrane, so you can lose hearing over time, but typically it doesn't affect hearing that much. Occasionally it can.
Would you say scar tissue never wish you saw?
I feel like you're trying to trick me.
It's a line from the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, yes.
Okay, all right, we'll just move on. It's fine.
Something, Mr. Know-It-All. Nailed it.
Okay, anyway, we won't need to delve into that any further. Okay, but yes, okay, so you were talking about ear infections and rupturing your eardrum. And like I said, so my wife actually did have a ruptured eardrum a number of years ago from a ear infection. And the treatment for that is in most cases, there's no surgery involved, right? You just let it heal, like you said. So but can you do surgery on an eardrum?
I have no idea. You probably can. So the doctors that do middle ear surgeries are called the ENT, ear, nose, throat doctors, and they can do some pretty crazy, amazing things like replacing those bones in your middle ear, which are so tiny, by the way. It's amazing that they can get in there and replace them. If they're not moving correctly, and there's a lot of amazing things they can do. I would guess that they could probably do something to the eardrum, but I think it heals. It heals pretty well. It rarely is it creating a problem, unless I think it's ruptures at a certain area that is more likely to create issues, and I think that's close to the bone, where the bone's attached. So it usually doesn't. It usually will not give way like right where the bone is. It's like a little bit more reinforced there. But if it does, it can create some more scar tissue because of that extra bone and stuff that's there.
Okay. Small side though, something when I was looking up this whole thing as well, it said the ear sensitivity. So you talked about those inner ear, like the hair cells. Um, it said they're so sensitive they can detect movements smaller than the width of an atom, which is like crazy to me. But that I think will actually makes more sense out of the thing we're going to talk about at the end, which is echolocation. But like super fine tuned. So like you said, like inside the ear, the bones are tiny. Like everything's just so. But you know, the doctor ENTs are very good at what they do generally, and it's amazing how well we understand the system now. So, but the one thing that still exists despite our abilities to understand hearing is there still are deaf. You know, there still are people that cannot hear. And so what is it that usually isn't working in a deaf person's ear?
Yeah, so there's actually two types of deafness. There's mechanical and sensory neural. Okay, so if you don't have any of those bones that will jiggle and make that fluid wave inside your ear, then like you can't hear. Like there's no way. So that's like a mechanical cause. So if there's something that's like missing or something that fuses, like sometimes those bones, like that bone that acts like a plunger in the internal ear, sometimes it'll get fused so it can't move anymore. And then it won't be able to plunge back and forth, and you'll get hearing loss, mechanical hearing loss. Sensory neural hearing loss is when there's a problem. So we talked about, when we talked about hearing, from the external ear all the way into the internal ear. Okay, so those are all mechanical structures. If you don't have an ear canal, you're not going to be able to hear. But so anything from outer ear all the way into inner ear, if those things are damaged, then that would be considered mechanical hearing loss. Sensory neural hearing loss is when there's a problem, either creating the electrical signal that goes to your brain and that tells you that you're hearing a sound. So if there's a problem with the hair cells, I'm pretty sure it's considered sensory neural hearing loss. Or there's a problem with your nerve that goes into your brain, then that can be considered sensory neural hearing loss. Or there's a problem with your brain that typically interprets the signals that are coming in from the ear. So if that part of the brain is damaged, like with a stroke or something like that, then you also wouldn't be able to hear. There's a lot of different causes for each type of hearing loss, but the ones that you typically hear the most, or don't hear the most about, would be the sensory neural ones. Those are can be a little bit more complicated and a little bit more nuanced, like cancers and strokes and nerve diseases. There's sometimes I'm trying to think of which infection, if the baby gets it in utero, they have a very high chance of getting nerve damage that will cause them not to be able to hear. So there's lots of things that can cause deafness, but those are the kind of the two big categories: the mechanical and the sensory neural.
And for the sensory neural, so that used to be, we can solve a lot of these problems now with modern technology, modern medicine, right? Like not all deaf people are able to we can't, with the medicine that we currently have and the different surgery techniques, solve every problem. But from what I was reading about the cochlear implants, is that the right word?
Yes.
they like that's insane to me. Like we can like implant stuff back here that essentially like bypasses your normal hearing system and like implants signals directly into your nervous system and so that you can essentially hear, right?
Yeah. So basically, since your brain can interpret these signals coming from different areas of the cochlea, if you can attach a little electrode that will send an electrical pulse to the same spot every single time a certain frequency is played, then your brain will eventually learn how to interpret that as sound. So what the cochlear implants do is they will have leads that or electrodes that will stimulate different parts of the nerve, and then your brain is able to like interpret that as sound over time. So they still have to kind of learn how to do it, and they're not going to be able to hear like me and you can hear. It's not going to be exactly the same. A lot of them are still going to need to read lips to get clues for what they're hearing. And they're not going to be able, they can probably tell that there might be like music on or something like that. Or if there's a lot of background noise, they're going to have a very difficult time. But they're able to hear, and they think it might sound kind of robotic because they're not getting the little nuances of different pitches, because there's only so many electrodes that you can implant into a nerve. You can't do it exactly like the cochlea, but they're getting a lot better and safer, and a lot of these people are able to get normal jobs and communicate, and really become more ingrained, more intertwined in like normal hearing society. I know that if some deaf people are listening to this, they may get offended by that, and some of them they really have a very tight knit group of the deaf community, and I've heard that occasionally people that will get the cochlear implants will kind of be outcasts from the deaf community in a way, just because it's like, oh, you've kind of like we're not good
Sold
enough for
out.
you now. You need like other people as well to be there for you, which I find kind of interesting. But I think we're a lot like that as humans. We like to be around people that are like us.
Right.
And so if you have somebody that's a lot like you, and then all of a sudden they're not, that can create some discord there for sure.
Yeah. Interesting. I hadn't heard that. That's wild. Okay.
Yeah, I have heard the same thing as Johnny.
Oh, yeah.
I've had worked with some people whose children had some cochlear implants and stuff like that, and they liked it, just because they were able to communicate better. I've also heard like it's a little bit easier with kids versus adults, some things like that. I've heard some mention of that. Just out of curiosity, Dr. Johnny, just as we're talking about the ear, we're talking about tinnitus, hearing loss, as the cilia gets affected with things like that. Do you know any studies with children or anything like that shows like an effect of like listening to like music with earbuds or headphones and stuff like that that's caused like issues growing up, things like that?
Yeah, there's actually a ton of studies that show that that in-ear headphones are really bad for your hearing and can cause acceleration of your aging process that you normally go through. I actually myself, I don't have very good hearing in my right ear, and I think it's because I never used earplugs when I went to shoot guns with like my dad and stuff. So
Mhm.
that's the ear that was always like next to the gun, and I mean, we all grew up together. Like, we never wore ear protection when we're shooting guns, which are very loud and very damaging. And I'm sure that you guys remember like shooting the gun, and then all of a sudden you hear this,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, like you get that immediate ringing in your ear. That's your hair cell that's like, oh, I'm dead.
Signing off. It's been fun, but it hasn't been
Yeah,
so fun.
it's like we're leaving now. No, but yeah, there you do have some ways to help protect your ear. So you have a little tiny muscle that connects to those bones in your middle ear, and if you're hearing loud noises, it'll actually contract, and it will cause those vibrations to be much smaller than they would be by themselves. So I don't know if you've ever noticed, like when you are coming home from like a loud concert, everything like kind of sounds muffled. But then after a while, you can like kind of hear normal again. It's because those muscles will contract and protect your ear. But yeah, I mean, us as humans, we think that louder is better. And then I think older people, once they get to that point where they're losing some hearing, they probably think, I wish I wore some earplugs. That's kind of about where I'm at. Is I wish I would have put in some earplugs every once in a while.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is good
Last
information.
concert I went to, I actually brought earplugs just to put in, just because it's just so loud. Like,
Yeah.
I hear too much anyway. So yeah.
This is good information because our users skew youngish. Like, we have a lot of teenagers and a bunch of 20 somethings listening to us. So this is old man wisdom coming, even though none of us are super old yet. But this is slightly older, middle-aged wisdom coming back and saying it's worth it. So like in-ear earbuds, which are your AirPods and stuff like that, can cause problems. I when I was reading about this, it said that the recommendation, and I assume this is from a medical authority, not just ChatGPT, but maybe. Um,
Yeah, it's the same now. I told you this at the beginning. It's the same.
right, right. It said no more than 60% volume, max volume, for no more than 60 minutes, and then give your ears a break. And it said that's going to help you maintain ear health, so or hearing. So no more than 60% of the max volume of your earbuds or your headphones. Even they said headphones are better, like Johnny said, but 60% max for 60 minutes, and then take them off or take them out and give your ears a break, because like Johnny said, the hair cells are finite. You don't regrow them, and when you're done, you're done. So yeah.
Yeah. Have you guys heard of the bone conduction headphones?
Yes.
I don't really know where those fall into place, but I I feel like you can't get them as loud as like your regular headphones, and but I don't really know. I'm making this all up, but they're pretty cool. So they sit behind your ear, and instead of using like the external ear parts like your eardrum and stuff like that to make noise, it's like it plays the vibration straight into the bone that surrounds the middle ear, and that's how you're able to like hear the music. These can be pretty cool for people that like to ride bikes or go running, and they're out in the middle of uh, who knows what, like traffic or wildlife. So you're able to hear what's going on around you, but you're still able to listen to music. So it's using that idea that like you can stimulate the cochlea and get the sound, get your brain to interpret that sound. So they figured out how to do that through just stimulating the bone, and then it will create those waves in the cochlea that you would for your regular type of music. They're actually really kind of interesting. So if especially like, I feel like people with headphones and like heavy traffic, riding bikes and things like that, I feel like it would be so much more safe to be able to hear what's going around you.
That's interesting. I feel like I've seen them, but I've never even like really internalized and thought about it much.
Yeah, they almost look like a hearing aid. They like kind of like wrap around your ear, and
Right.
I don't know which bone they use. I think some of them might use like the one in front of your ear, and then a lot of them will use the bone behind your ear, which is where all the hearing stuff is located, is the bone behind your ear. So anyway, it's it's interesting technology, and it's probably a little bit underutilized, but it's kind of cool.
That's cool. I like that. Okay, 3 more things, including my story. So we're going to discuss earwax, which is super exciting. Um, Tinnitus, which is how we started. Like I said, that's like my situation, and then echolocation, which I've teased this whole time. Okay, so earwax and tinnitus in my story go hand in hand. I know that they don't always go hand in hand, but they do for me right now. So like a month ago, I swim a lot, and so I thought I got swimmer's ear, which is essentially like a minor ear infection of the outer ear, Johnny, or something like that. It's like it doesn't involve the middle ear or the inner ear. It's just in the canal, right?
Yeah, just the external ear. Yeah.
Right. So I've been swimming. I didn't have a lot of pain, but my hearing started to fuzz after swimming, and so I just assumed that it was swimmer's ear, despite the fact that I didn't really have any pain. But then essentially went full blockage. Like I could hardly hear anything um, from when I was talking. It was like someone had plugged my ear. Like I could hear from the inside, but I couldn't, like, outside. It was nothing. And as men are wont to do, I assumed it would go away, and I ignored it. And I ignored it for like a week.
By the way, he has a very good friend that's a doctor, and this is the first time he's hearing about it.
Okay, my wife may have said, "Why don't you tell Johnny?" And I may have said, "Johnny's got patience; he doesn't need another one." Anyway, so I'm like, at some point after like a week, I'm like, I should probably do something about this. And I think, oh, maybe it's earwax, like maybe, and so like I like squirt, like, I'm pretty careful with it, but like I'm squirting like saline solution into my ear, warm saline solution, to see if nothing comes out. I don't actually try that hard, which, um, anyway, because I don't want to hurt myself. So another day or two goes by, and it's like completely, I just can't hear anything, and I'm like, I gotta do. So I tried to call my doctor and get an appointment, and they're like, how about we see you in 3 weeks? And I was like, well, that's not going to work. So I went to urgent care, and the urgent care doctors put in like ear wax dissolve. So they looked in, obviously, immediately. What's that tool, Johnny, that you look into people's ear with?
Otoscope.
Otoscope. Okay, I don't have one of those. Maybe I should invest in one.
No, it's a bad idea.
Okay.
Doctor.
Okay.
They have like new camera ones. They're not that expensive. You can buy them online. And honestly, since then, people have started really injuring themselves.
Okay.
So I would probably just steer clear.
Okay.
But be careful.
Yeah. So I go to the doctor. They look in my ear. They're like, "That's clogged with earwax." So they put in some like drops in to like liquefy the earwax, and then they like do the whole like cleansing of the ear. Well, to be fair, the doctor left. He just said it's blocked. Nurses take care of it, and so they put the eardrops in, and then they irrigated it or whatever, and they got some earwax out, and it sounded fine. For like 2 days, and then I couldn't hear anything again. Literally nothing again. And at this point, I'm like, and he'd given me some eardrops because he's like, he prescribed some antibiotic eardrops. He said, maybe with the earwax being pushed up against the eardrum, it's going to, when the earwax pulls away, it might cause some irritation, which makes it easier for the bacteria to, I don't know. Anyway, he said put in these eardrops. So I've been doing that, and like 2 days later, I can't hear again. And I'm like, well, I guess I'll just continue on. We'll just soldier on, and this will go away at some point. And so another week goes by, and I can't hear diddly squat out of my left ear. And so now I'm like, I've got I need to go to the doctor again because I can't hear. And anyway, so I call my doctor, and they're like, "How about we get you in tomorrow?" I was like, "Well, that's kind of what I had hoped the first time." So I go into my doctor, and she looks in. She looks in both ears, which the other doctor didn't do. I mean, to be fair, it's urgent care. They're like running around trying to sew people's body parts back on. So, like I can't hear what like it didn't exactly rate on their scale. I don't think. So anyway, my doctor looks in. She looks in both ears. She's like, both your ears are completely clogged with wax." And so she gets her nurse in there, and she comes in with these like wicked looking like tweezer looking things.
Oh yeah, they're called alligator forceps. They're cool.
Yeah, they're really cool. And she comes in with liquid as well, but she's like, and I told her it's like the other nurses irrigated it, but they didn't go in and like try to with any metal. And she's like, well, they probably should have. And so she just goes to town. She was so pleased and so happy about the amount of earwax she was getting out. I was surprised she didn't post it immediately on Instagram. She waited until I left. Like it was truly prodigious the amount of earwax coming out of my ears. And the left ear, so obviously, so she pulls out just a lot of earwax, and then she irrigates it, and anyway, just completely clears it out. Everything's great now. Okay. Well, what I hadn't mentioned, sorry, before I went back to the doctor the second time, ringing had started in my ear. So that's tinnitus, right? So I'm having ringing in my ear, perpetual ringing. So if it hadn't been for that, I probably actually would have continued soldiering on for much longer, even though I was partially deaf. But like the ringing in my ear was just like, it's maddening and it's constant. And so I go into the doctor and they clear it out and immediately everything's fine. I'm like, I'm healed. I am good to go. And so the doctor had said she wanted to like check me after the nurse was done, but I think there was some confusion and the nurse was like, just take off. And I was like, I thought they said, she's like, leave. So I left. And they did actually follow up with me later. I do like my doctor, but and so I'm so happy. I go home, and that night my kids are loud, big surprise, and my ears like very sensitive, and the ringing starts again, and I'm like, okay, I know it's not wax now. I've been putting these stupid antibiotic drops in for a week, so it's not an infection. I just have I just have tinnitus, and so that has been 10 days ago now, and the tinnitus continues. It did subside last Friday, and then the next day I'm coaching a soccer team, my daughter's soccer team. I'm coaching, and I'm like out there just yelling, and that just fired the tinnitus right back up. I mean, immediately re-engaged, and it's been ringing the last 4 days again. Slightly higher pitched, slightly quieter. But so tinnitus is that ringing in your ear, which, from what I've read, Jonny, and once again, correct me if I'm wrong, essentially it isn't actually anything mechanical. It's your brain saying, I'm not getting the input that I'm assuming I'm supposed to be getting, so let's compensate. And that essentially causes this like ringing sound where it's like, it's almost like what happens when you get feedback and like a microphone or something like that, where like you're getting this loop where it's just like ring, 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 ring. And so it feels like it's going to drive you insane because like everything's quiet and there's just a loud, high-pitched ringing.
Yeah, it does drive some people insane.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. Like,
So
actually insane.
I,
It's
I
really
told
sad, actually, but
I
there's
told the guy.
that you can do for it, honestly.
Right.
So it's the frustrating thing about tinnitus.
Right. So I do have, for those of you, obviously I believe in modern science. I'm not. Uh, I'm kind of an old-fashioned, like, let things figure. But anyway, whatever. I have an appointment with an ENT. The problem is ENTs are overbooked in California, and so my appointment with the ENT is in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So, because
Wait,
what here, Johnny, and this is like playing house now, right? This is not house like little dolls, but like the old doctor show house. Um, we can do
I'll
both.
be the dad. You be the
What I
mom.
assume happened is I've had earwax probably in that ear, just clogging my ear for probably a long time. It just completely sealed off, a month ago. But it's been probably dampening the sound for a long time. And so my eardrum is just super sensitive now. So anytime I get in loud circumstances, it's just like firing off like crazy. And that my brain is like, what the crap are you doing? And so it's like having to constantly recalibrate, which I believe is causing the ringings. Because when I have a long, quiet day, which rarely happens with the number of children that I have, they it does seem the ringing like subsides a little bit. But I just don't get that very often. So anyway, any insight into my tinnitus and my earwax issues, John?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people will say, like your brain can turn up and down like sensitivities to certain things. So if you're having a hard time hearing, then yeah, your brain's going to be a little bit more sensitive, like trying to, make it so that you can hear things. So a lot of people, when they have a big old chunk of earwax, when you get it out, they'll say like, wow, I didn't realize I talk so loud, and things like that. So,
Right.
so it really makes like a big difference that you don't really realize. But yeah, I think that's a great hypothesis, and I hope that your tinnitus goes away because it's really, really obnoxious. And I think a lot of us have experienced tinnitus when we hear like a big ringing sound, like after a loud noise. That's like, but like the constant day after day is so annoying and so infuriating. It's like I don't know, I have this thing when I'm trying to go to sleep. If I can hear a clock ticking, it just drives me insane. And it's kind of like that, where you're like, I'm trying to ignore it, but the more I ignore it, the more I focus on it, and it can really really it can really dampen your spirits, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I told the guy at church that about this tinnitus I was having. And he tells me that he's had it before, and he's like, "Yeah, I had it," and I like Googled it, and of course, immediately I'm laughing. I'm like, what happens when you Google a health condition? And he's like, literally the first thing he read is like a CEO that had tinnitus that killed himself. Like, oh, okay, all right, cool.
so
You're like, thanks, Google.
fun factoid there, Carl. Our father had tinnitus pretty bad.
Right, right.
And he would listen to things on YouTube, and it just sounded like static. Like I could, when we would come over and visit, I could hear him like listening to like the thing. He would just leave it on and like unplug his headphones. I could hear the static through the headphones. Like the static drove me crazy.
Right.
I was like, why do we have static playing? It was the weirdest thing. But yeah, after he would listen to it, then the ringing wasn't as bad and stuff like that. So I mean, there could be some hereditary stuff going on. Also, I put a nice link in our chat that you can look out afterwards. That it has a nice ear cleaner that you can get yourself.
Yeah, that's actually a good idea.
Major supplier of purveyor of things that has a grocery store and other things like that. And many people watch videos, off of their streaming platform.
Yeah. Yeah, I was the doctor did tell me that he's like, you should get some earwax dissolving drops. He's like, you have a problem.
Yeah. And both of our parents have that issue,
Right.
have had that issue.
Right. So I'm predisposed. This isn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. Though Jonny was telling us before the podcast, Cameron can assent that the cottons, the ear, what's that thing? What's
Q-tips.
Q-tip? That's the word I was going for.
Cotton
Q-tips
swabs,
in the ear.
Q-tips, cotton swabs, the
Not
brand.
generally sanctioned by your doctor, but Jonny highly recommends.
Hey, keep those things out of your ear.
Yeah, especially Jonny's a pediatrician. I'm sure you tell your kids or all your patients, don't shove stuff in your ear.
Yeah, one of the worst eardrum injuries I saw was a kid that you just don't want to show kids that they can put things in their ear because one of them, they were playing like that game that you pull out these long, like chopstick like things. They're like these long skewers and the marbles will fall down from this like area that they're stuck. Anyway, so one of the other kids stabbed his brother into the ear with one of those. So that was not good.
Oh my.
You just don't want your kids to get used to like putting things in their ears or being curious about putting things in their ears. That's one of the things you just don't want them to do.
Right. Yeah, I'd say most adults are probably too like if you put a Q-tip in just to the canal, you're fine, right? But the problem is that you don't know how deep you're going to go, and if you start hitting up against your eardrum, you can cause some damage, or just push the earwax up against your eardrum, which is not going to actually.
But I would
help.
imagine that it feels very good.
Have you ever used the earwax candles that you tilt your head and you light the candle and it
I've heard about those.
sucks out the earwax?
Yeah, I think those
I've
are
heard
a
about that.
scam, but I don't know.
They could be. I did. I have tried them. I also used to do hydrogen peroxide. Do a little hydrogen
Peroxide works for sure. Yeah.
And just hold it there, and just once the bubbling stopped, then I turned my ear in.
Right.
Yeah, the hydrogen peroxide. So there's something you can buy I think it's over the counter called Debrox, and it can. So this will melt your earwax, and it is just a high percentage of hydrogen peroxide. It melts your earwax, and then your earwax can leak out. So you want to be careful not to use it if you are concerned about an eardrum that has been perforated. Do not use the Debrox. But if you're not worried about it, then I think it's a really great thing, and it's just as effective as like any other tool that you could use to clean your ears with, except for the ENTs that have like these specialized cameras that can go pull the craziest thing out of ears that you've ever seen. If you want a good one to follow, Dr. Booger on Instagram. He's one that will pull.
Dr.
Booger, yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. He's an ENT, and he pulls all sorts of weird stuff out of ears. So anyway, that's one to follow if you like that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah. Okay. Last thing, because I think we're at like at least an hour now. Echolocation, which I teased for a long time, which sounds like something just bats can do, or dolphins or whatever. But it turns. Jonny is echolocating our listeners. Jonny, you'll have to make noises much louder than that.
Okay.
Our listeners.
Like a famous deaf German that like rides a bicycle, or maybe he's blind. I think he's blind, and he rides a bicycle and he uses echolocation.
I've seen that kid. Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
So I was reading up on it because I read the book, the series Gregor the Overlander, I think it's been referenced on the podcast before. You guys heard about this? No.
I don't trust any books that haven't the name Gregor.
Gregor the Overlander is written by Susan Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games. So everyone on this podcast has read The Hunger Games, and everyone listening, a high percentage of you have read The Hunger Games. The first series that she wrote was Gregor the Overlander, which is aimed at a slightly younger audience, probably. Anyway, but it's good. It's a good read. It's fun. But in the books, Gregor, which is of course the hero, learns to do echolocation. And I was like, I mean, it's a make-believe world anyway. I just assumed it was part of the make-believe world. Turns out, not true. You can actually, or it is true, whatever. Anyway, you can learn to do echolocation as a human. And like to the point that you can, it says individuals have been able to identify the size, shape, and density of objects, navigate complex environments, and perform complex physical activities like mountain biking using echolocation. So if you train
They
yourself,
sound ridiculous, though.
Yeah,
So
probably.
if you are listening, that's actually amazing. So keep doing your thing. Don't listen to what I say. Sorry.
I mean, it is insane to me that like we have that ability, but there are brain areas that are essentially, and obviously blind people develop them, but anyone can develop them. And it says that although a few studies have been performed on the neural basis of human echolocation, studies report activation of the primary visual cortex during echolocation. So essentially, you're seeing the sound in your brain. Isn't that crazy?
I heard there are certain medicines that can do that too. Wink,
Certain
wink.
types of mushrooms also.
It's a different kind of pharmacist.
I found those guys' names that are blind that use echolocation to ride bikes. It's Daniel Kish and Brian Rushway. Just if you want their names.
Okay, interesting. Well, that gives people something to go look up. So yeah, it's something that obviously the blind community has probably the most experience with. And so I just watched a YouTube video where a blind man was explaining how he uses clicks to essentially help. You know, obviously he had a walking stick, but he also said like the clicking very, very, and he gave some examples. And one of them was like so quiet. It was like, how does that help you? Like, can you really echolocate on there's this tiny little click sound? But he said that can be used in some circumstances. Sometimes you need a loud click, but using those things, he's able to navigate much better. And so if that's something that interests you, that's something that you can actually train yourself to do, independent of whether or not you're blind. You can actually still learn echolocation to the point where you're actually able to do complex activities, navigate a room, a house, using clicks. So I kind of want to try. I think that'll be our next podcast. Will actually just be clicks, and it'll be Jonny walking around clicking.
Next time I have to wake up and go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, I'm going to drive my wife crazy.
The podcast after that is How to Survive Divorce. And then using echolocation to go to the bathroom during the night.
Yes,
How
exactly.
to echolocate random objects that are thrown your way while you're echolocating trying to find the bathroom.
It's a shoe. It's flying in my direction.
Man,
Miss Mink.
that lady knows how to throw a slipper.
Oh gosh. Okay. Well, this seems like the end of the podcast to me. I do want to tease our next listener. I did actually launch. I said I would, and then I did, and so far nobody cares. Like obviously, our listeners aren't going to subscribe to our paid membership until we have some type of paid content, which we don't have yet. But I did tease it on our book, our the Giver podcast that we're going to do this. We're going to do another book club, layman book club podcast about Frankenstein. We'll probably do that in a week or two. And we will post that on our Patreon page, where if you pay $5, you can get access. So Frankenstein is very interesting, and we probably have some information that is unique.
Frankenstein.
We do.
Yes.
Anyway,
And Frau Bruche.
let's go ahead and jump over there soon. We're gonna. Jonny really has been looking for additional side hustle. Doctor is, I mean, it's a nice day job, but what you really need is a moonlight as a podcaster that makes like $5 a podcast, right?
Yes, that we split 5 ways.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I mean, look at Dr. Pimple Popper. I mean, she does, her thing, and she gets a lot of extra cash with her videos and things like that.
That's true.
Eventually, a major network is going to pick us up, and we get back to those that are listening to us first. I'm just going to say that.
That's right. I think the most likely station to pick us up is isn't there a channel mostly focused on UFOs and just present our podcast as like evidence in favor? Like
Yeah.
these guys aren't.
It's the Learning Channel. The Learning Channel's all about UFOs, or the History Channel.
That's right. Didn't that the Nate Bargatze skit from the Emmys? It's good stuff.
I'll bring it up to the next Bigfoot meeting that I attend.
Actually, it wouldn't surprise me.
At one of the hotels that I worked at.
I was going to say, actually, it wouldn't surprise me if Cameron was involved in like meetings involving the discussion of Bigfoot.
I'm just saying, there's some real organizations out there, and they met at my hotel, and I set up their sound and video equipment for that.
That's awesome. So, we need to get some of those guys on the podcast.
Yes, that would be interesting. I'd like that.
That would be fun. Well, okay. Well, thank you, Jonny, for giving us the insight that I had looked up from ChatGPT, but an actual doctor's and medical degree behind it, which is better than my, somewhat casual research. So,
if you guys have questions, send them to Carl.
Or me.
Yeah. Or Cameron. Exactly. We've got options.
I mean, I can use other search engines, AI to look up answers, or I'll actually ask my friends that are doctors and nurses what the answers are.
I was gonna say, if I tell you to go through Carl, then I know it won't ever get back to me.
Hey, just so we're clear, I call Jonny. I call all of the people on my podcast occasionally. I just don't ask them professional questions because I don't want to have them bill me. So.
Yeah, if I had linguistic questions, I would probably go to ChatGPT.
Exactly. See. All right. Anyway, thank you for joining everyone.
An hour-long podcast about pigeon language, Jonny. That's why.
That's exactly right. It's good stuff. I've got good information about pigeon languages. Darn it. All right. We will be back.
Listen to one of our podcasts about it.
Okay, and we're out.